Good morning, everybody. I was asked to speak on the topic of intrahepatic cholestasis of pregnancy, specifically about the diagnosis and the management. I've tried to cover the important questions that are usually associated with ICP. This not being my area of field of work, I don't see these patients, but then I felt that a lot of it is to do with genetics, and hence pediatric hepatology has some connection. So the definition of ICP is the liver disease with onset during the pregnancy, presence in third trimester with pruritus and increased levels of serum transaminases with total blood, bile acids levels more than 10 micromole per liter. Pruritus is predominant, largely in the palms and soles, with minor excoriation to severe nodules present there. There is a spontaneous relief to pruritus as well as to lab abnormalities promptly after the delivery, and that typically results in some studies, they call it 4 weeks or at the most up to 12 weeks. Some of these patients, about 20%, will have elevated direct bilirubin also, and steatorrhea as well as malaise and anoxia may be present. What is the epidemiology of ICP in the world? In various areas, it's present from 0.2% to 2%. In one of the races of Orocra races in Chile, native population of Chile, they found it was almost up to 25% in the late 80s. But the reason behind that is still not known, although now in the last decade or so, it has come down to about 5 to 6%. In Europe, it is between 0.1% to 1.5%, the highest being from a study in Sweden, and another study from UK says 0.51%. China, again, is having a larger chunk of these patients, 2.3 to 6%, and India is 0.78 to 1%. Just one study which is clearly mentioning that. Now, what is a differential diagnosis that you may have to, think about when you are dealing with these patients? Maybe a preeclampsia of pregnancy, hemolysis, elevated enzymes and low platelets like syndrome of HELP syndrome, or acute fatty liver of pregnancy. These are three things that you should keep in mind. Apart from this, the other liver diseases have to also be kept in mind, which may come without pregnancy, and that is viral, autoimmune hepatitis, NASH, substance abuse. Apart from that, there are some dermatological conditions which have to be kept in mind when you are diagnosing ICP. The risk factors for ICP, as traditionally mentioned up till now, were HCV being the most important. They felt there was some seasonal variation, low selenium levels, low vitamin D levels, multiple gestations, and advanced maternal age. But apart from all this, I think a very important part that is now come to play is genetics. So how does ICV actually become a risk factor? They have seen that almost 16,000 pregnancies were screened, 63 were HCV positive, and 145 were ICP present. And out of these 63 out of these 145 ICP present, 10 of these were having HCV present. So the proportion of these, HCV positive and HCV negative is very high in favor of HCV positive among ICP patients. Again, ICP was very, strongly present here, 20.33% versus, I'm sorry, this is not working very well, 20.33% versus just 0.78% when you see the HCV positive and HCV negative patients. Risk of developing ICP in patients who were having hepatitis C was much higher, again very significantly present in patients with HCV positive and also in gallstones. But right now we are dealing with HCV. Those who had very high number of viral load, that is 495 copies per ml, had very high percentage of developing ICP. Now, this is another study as to, kind of questioning as to how can HCV cause ICP. So HCV, and they have seen that it causes in the human hepatocytes region, it causes, if you look at the hepatitis, non-infected areas and HCV infected areas, you find that there is a decrease in MRP2 by remaining only 29% of the control. And this, they feel, is the responsible for MRP2. We know is a ATP binding agent, which is encoded by ABCC2, is a transporter on the canalicular membrane of the hepatocytes. So significant reduction in MRP2 was seen, and this, they feel, could be responsible. How it is happening is that the treatment of the hepatic cells is happening because of the inflammatory cytokines due to chronic hepatitis, and which decreases the MRP2, which in turn fails in the transport of genomic substances and further causing hepatotoxicity. Now, again, to study the association between HCV, and it is well established now that HCV, whether it's pre-existent present, it can cause intrahepatic cholestasis of pregnancy, and if it is not present, ICP, if it is present, it may then later on cause, the patient presents with HCV. So it is both ways. This association is very strongly seen, and the answers to this is that HCV would downregulate the expression, like I just told you, of MRP2 in the liver, which will induce a failure in the transport of various toxic substances. There's also a feeling that high estrogen and progesterone levels during pregnancy may increase the risk of ICP through FXR. But how does HCV play a role in that is yet to be known. Persistent viremia induces modification in hepatocytes and biliary epithelial cells, which again could be responsible for ICP. ABCB11, which has been found to be present in considerable percentage of patients with HCV. Almost 40% of HCV-infected patients will have ABCB11 genotype or mutation present, and that can cause an increase in the bile acids. So these are the reasons why we can maybe conjecture how ICV is related with ICP. There's another study which says that the ERK pathway is basically the proliferation pathway or the replication pathway for HCV. And if there is disruption, if this pathway is actually promoted by by increased level, HCV's increased levels of replication happen because of the bile acid retention. If there is bile acid retention in the body of the mother, then there is HCV replication. So they have also hypothesized that if you use two things, that AG1, it's one of the names are same, AG478, and they have done an experimental study that if you use this, then you can reduce the bile acid mediated promotion of HCV and actually have a better treatment of HCV with IFN. This was days when they were treating HCV with IFN. Now the next risk factor that is important, and that is the genetic etiology. Why do we really think that this could be one of the risk factors? There are pedigree studies which have identified families where ICP is inherited in an autosomal dominant sex-limited fashion. Sibling studies are there, and that they have seen a 12-fold increase in risk between Paris, sisters, and the highest incidence have been found to be in the native Chilean population, and that too was possibly thought that there could be some genotype which is working there. So keeping all this in mind, it is these transporters which may most likely are to be, the encoding of these transporters is supposed to be the problem there. So which are the various transporters? To be precise, ATP8B1, which you may be aware as FIC1, is very commonly seen or has been seen with ICP. In the clinical spectrum, ICP is there. ABCB11 again, which is PFIC2, again ICP is present. ABCB4, which is PFIC3, again ICP is present in this thing with the MDR deficiency. And I just talked about ABCC2, which encodes for MRP2, and again this is the ICP has been seen along with Dubin-Johnson syndrome in the clinical spectrum. NR1H4 encodes for, it's a gene for FXR, and this again has been seen to be affected in, patients affected with this may have ICP. FGF, is FXR causes homeostasis of the bile acids, and FGF also is involved in the same pathway. abnormality of the bile acids transport. So that again can be causing ICP. So these are the various, the various biomarkers, genetic biomarkers. ABCB4, as far as ABCB4 is concerned, there is very ample data to show the spectrum. I've shown this slide earlier when I was taking a class for the hepatology department, that there is a spectrum of ABCB4 involvement, right from mild heterozygous to severe homozygous types. And if you see, cholestasis of pregnancy is there in this spectrum. This is one very large study done in 147 ICP patients recently by the London group. The hospital of, they've got, I'm forgetting the name of that hospital, and King's College together did this study, and they found that all these, ATP81, ABCB2, ABCB4, ATP11, and one new candidate which was identified here was TGP2 in this cohort of 147 patients. And what they found is that 26 potentially damaging variants were identified in these various genes, various mutations. 12 in ABCB4, like I told you, it's already established. I showed you that slide. 4 potential ABCB11 mutations, 5 potential ATP8 FIC1 mutations, 3 potential mutations were identified for TGP2. This is for the first time that they have identified the TGP2. And TGP2 is very well known in children, at least, to cause very early HCC. If you've seen HCC in the second or the third year of life, then it is largely in PFIC patients, and it's largely TGP2 which is doing that. 2 significant alterations were also identified in ABCC2, which is encoding for MRP2. And all these were heterozygous, not homozygous. So you can understand, if they were homozygous, they would present in childhood as PFIC. But if they are heterozygous, they would present in the adulthood, maybe with gallstones, maybe with ICP, or with maybe low phospholipid associated cholestasis. So 12 of the total number, 46%, had established family history in this cohort. ABCB4 mutant carriers groups, that is 8 out of 12, had a family history of biliary disease, that is ICP, cholelithiasis, or cirrhosis. So that makes the history very important. And that may give you a clue that you may be dealing with a genetic cause of ICP. 5% of the ICP cases harbor a heterozygous mutation of ABCB11, and 3% of ICP may have a heterozygous mutation of ATP8B1, which is the PFIC1 gene. TGP2 in the ICP cohort, this was the first time it was found with 3 occurrences of variants that may predispose to the disease. Is FXR also affected? Or FXR also involved? This is one study which they have used what is called as guglustrione, which is actually used to block the FXR. So when they blocked the FXR, they could not find any HCV protein expression. But when they did not block the FXR, and they gave CDCA, they found that the HCV protein expression was better. So there is a feeling that the HCV involvement with ICP could be through the FXR. Okay. So now another study to talk about FXR as such, and what they have seen is that this is a metabolite of progesterone, which is called as, somebody can read it up for me, yeah. Epiallopregnolone sulfate, PM5,5S, and this was supraphysiologically present in ICP. They found this, as you can see it here, this was very high in ICP, whereas in normal it was quite low. Now, this around 33 to 38 weeks of gestation. Then they tried to look at that if you block the FXR, if you knock out the FXR, and then you try and look at the three groups, which is maybe one where you have given only CDCA, one where you've given this metabolite, and one which is normal or control. They found that all these areas whether BSEP, whether FXR, whether SHP, or CYP7A1, all these areas did not seem to be showing any changes from the normal, not significant changes. And that makes the belief that even this metabolite is working through the FXR. So if you block the FXR, then it blunts the response. Now, to go further, what are the other risk factors? We have discussed HCV, we discussed genetics quickly. It can present in multiparous women who have previously experienced ICP and is more common in the multiple gestations. The reason being very high levels of estrogen and progesterone in these patients, and they can come with early ICP also. The Finnish study says that 14% of twin pregnancies and 43% of the triplets, because of the high levels of estrogen, were affected. Advanced age is also seen as one of the reasons. We do not know the cause as yet. Vitamin D3. There was a set of patients where they found that the vitamin D3 were very low, where meconium stained Liker was positive. Here, the meconium stained Liker was positive with very high bile acids also. So to put 2 and 2 together and try to look at how can it happen, there is the bile acid and the estrogen progesterone metabolism and excretion through liver and intestine was regulated by vitamin D. And we know that vitamin D levels in pregnancy are very high. They're not like ours, like 50 would be normal. But here, if you see 50 is not normal, it is very low considered here, because placenta also secretes vitamin D. So that's vitamin D, if it is not coming, that may cause a problem with the bile acid metabolism and excretion of the bile acid through VDR. And this could be the reason why low vitamin D levels are associated with ICP. Old study, they talk about the glutathione peroxidase and reduce, which may have caused increased number of free radicals and damage the hepatocyte and reduce the excretion of bile. Again, it has been seen here with patients who were singletons, babies who had twins, and normal pregnancies, and they found that bile acids were high. The selenium concentration vis-a-vis the glutathione peroxidase was low. Both of them were low in singleton and twin deliveries vis-a-vis who had ICP, vis-a-vis the normal pregnancies. The next important, after the risk factors, the next important point that we must understand is the fetal outcome of ICP. ICP is associated with increased risk of preterm delivery to 19 to 60%. Intrapartum fetal distress has been seen to 22 to 41%, and intrauterine fetal death 0.75 to 1.6% of the affected pregnancies. This is one study where they found that all these bad fetal outcome, like preterm delivery, asphyxial events, meconium passage, and green staining of the placenta, all seems to be very significantly associated with ICP. And like you see that if there's no ICP, all this is just 5.4%. If there is mild ICP, it is 8.3%. But if it is severe ICP, then it is almost 25% of these perinatal complications. Fetal characteristics, respiratory distress, meconium, fetal distress, quite commonly present in these 101 ICP patients. And they finally showed the data which says that the ICP is almost, the fetal complications are almost 28% if the total bile acid level is less than 10 micromole. If it is 10 to 40, it again remains the same at 29%. But if the total bile acids goes beyond 100, then these fetal complications increase to 60%. Complications and the level of total bile acids in the mother. Again, if you see the higher number of fetal abnormalities, especially so in the severe ICP, who were 17% of the women with severe ICP delivered prior to 37 weeks of gestation. So preterm deliveries are quite common. Here again, if you look at whether it is preterm delivery or it is spontaneous preterm delivery or it is the stillbirth or a meconium stained Liker, all of them seem to be associated with the level of bile acids. If you see the level of bile acids here, the events are happening here, especially stillbirth. It seems to be happening more so in patients who had 100 to 200 level of total bile acids. So these events seem to be happening more with higher levels of total bile acids in patients with ICP. Now, fetal complications, high levels of bile acids have been seen to be present in fetal compartment and maybe the reason for fetal complications. Spontaneous preterm delivery, bile acids have an effect on the myometrial contractility and has been seen even to be very responsive to oxytocin, such mothers. Meconium stained amniotic fluid may be because of increase in the colonic motility secondary to bile acids. Neonatal respiratory distress has been seen that rabbits, when given bile acids in the intratracheal injection, as an intratracheal injection, it causes atelectasis and hyaline membrane, which can be reversed by surfactant, and has been seen recently that even some infants with unexpected respiratory distress in ICP were reversed with surfactant, intratracheal surfactant. Stillbirths, one explanation is cardiac arrhythmias, because when cardiomyocytes are exposed to bile acids, very high bile acids, they can cause arrhythmogenic activity, and also placental vessel spasm is another cause for these sudden, for these stillbirths. This is one study called Prospero study, where they've tried to see the adverse effects vis-a-vis the laboratory abnormalities, and the one that has been found to be very prominently present is the total bile acids. Everywhere it's a total bile acid which has the best ROC. This is one of the largest studies published in Lancet, where they've taken all case studies or small series on them together, and then looked at the levels of the total bile acids by increasing 20 micromole per liter in stepwise and doing a stepwise logistic regression. And for stillbirths, they felt that the stillbirths happen after the mother reaches the level of 100 micromole per liter. And this is how that you can see here. Even this is the mothers who are having 100, and they seem to be increasing in having stillbirth. Similarly, for preterm delivery, again, the preterm delivery seems to be happening in patients with more than 100 TB. The maternal outcome is well known. The recurrence of ICP is there in 45 to 70%. Oral contraceptive induced cholestasis is quite likely in the same family or in the mother who's had ICP. Low phospholipid associated cholelithiasis has also been seen very commonly in the same families. ICP has associated with later liver cancer in almost with the HR of 3.6%, biliary tree cancer 2.6%, 2.6 HR, the hazard ratio, diabetes hazard ratio 1.47, even Crohn's disease and psoriasis. And a small increased risk of later on cardiovascular disease has also been seen in patients with ICP. And as you can see in this study, that this was no events. And slowly, as time goes after the ICP, the mother, slowly she seems to be having events entering her life. This is the pattern that the mothers with ICP show. Same study, what are the diseases which creep in? One is that they're very often seen associated with hepatitis C, which we already know, other liver diseases, and I presume that they're talking of genetic, the other genetic causes which they have not lined up here. So maybe they are the ones which are responsible for this group. And then, of course, gallstone disease is very commonly seen in these patients. And that is not just seen within 1 year. It is also seen after 1 year and after 5 years. In this slide, they show you the same disease carry on, even being picked up till 5 years. A very large, now for the management of these patients, a very large study was done to look at the role of UTCA. Because in the management of ICP, there are just two questions that have to be answered. One, whether we need to give UTCA or not. And the second is, when do we do the delivery of these babies, of these mothers? So UTCA, was seen versus placebo. This was the one large randomized controlled study, which has recently been reported, I think last year, pitches. The primary report says that whether you look at the various abnormalities in the form of maternal itch, bile acid concentration, ALT levels over 10 weeks post-randomization, there is no complete lack of evidence that there is any benefit of UTCA, and hence it should not be used without any benefit. This was the primary result of the pitches randomized controlled trial. Then they did a secondary, with some more data in, they did a secondary analysis, and here they found that there could be some mild, benefit in patients who there was some decrease in the maternal itch. Other than that, and that too did not come out to be significantly present on infection testing, which I do not really know as to what it is, but they did not find it to be very significantly present. So a very big question mark both these analyses have done on the usage of UTCA in patients with ICP. But it is not so everywhere. This is a study which was reported from Johns Hopkins, I think, and they have said that evaluating the effectiveness and safety of UTCA in treatment of ICP and meta-analysis, they found that fetal distress, Apgar score less than 5 minutes, neonatal respiratory distress. This meta-analysis has shown that most of the studies are favoring the usage of UTCA. Similarly, here, if you look at the NICU stay or gestational age or the birth weight of the baby, again, it seems to be favoring the usage of UTCA, except if you overall see, it seems to be favoring UTCA still, but it's become very narrow. The benefit has become very narrow, but still they say that we should continue the usage of UTCA in these mothers with ICP. Very small studies, again, favoring the usage of UTCA with showing some changes in the maternal outcomes as well as in the fetal outcome. And Cochrane database system also says that UTCA has showed improvement in pruritus in 7 trials at least, and has been found to be superior to other drugs. So they still recommend the usage of UTCA in ICP. But there are 2 very large recent trials, that is pitches trial, primary trial and the secondary, who have completely negated the usage of UTCA in ICP. Last question. In women with ICP, the mortality risk of delivery versus expectant management. How do we understand that? Expectant management till 35 weeks. The mortality is 9.1 per 10,000. As far as delivery is concerned, till 35 weeks, it is very high. But by 36 weeks, the expectant management mortality increases by 19.2 per 10,000, and the delivery mortality risk now decreases to 4.2. And after 36 weeks, it keeps on increasing, whereas this keeps on decreasing. So the answer is that somewhere between 35 to 36 weeks is the time that we should deliver these babies, because then you have least amount of mortality rate after delivery, whereas if you have a huge risk while continuing the expectant management. So this is what is recommended for these babies, that we should still carry on doing the expectant management up till 35 to 36 weeks and then deliver these babies. So in the summary, incidence of ICP worldwide 0.2 to 0.2. ICP is higher in twin and in triplets. Adverse fetal and maternal outcomes, as we have just seen. Serum bile acids of more than 100 or up to 100 micromole per liter were found to be significantly increased, especially with stillbirth. Recurrence of ICP ranges between 45 to 70%, and other diseases develop in these mothers with ICP. So that is the maternal outcome which we must keep in mind and keep these mothers under follow-up. UTCA may be beneficial, but pitches revealed no benefit, which is a more recent study and a very huge data. May decrease itch in mothers, but no effect on fetal outcome as seen. But there are some other studies who feel that otherwise that there is some benefit. Delivery at 36 weeks is safer than carrying on with the expectant management at 36 weeks. Thank you.